when things get hard, you just like, you shove through them, right? So I just put myself into the most uncomfortable situations over and over again, where I was in groups of people, talking in front of people, and really just like force myself into it. And then obviously the more you do it, the more you get comfortable doing it.
Welcome to the Mark Ferris Experience, where we interview the top, most successful business entrepreneurs out there. We have Madison Taylor of Madison Taylor.
Yep.
Madison has a phenomenal story. She started this company from scratch and really is able to take design right to the next level. And we're going to talk about how she was able to create such a strong brand and how she created an 8-figure business starting from scratch and has 35 team members that she's overseeing. Madison, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Yes, it's great.
So, Madison, you've created an unbelievable reputation in really across Ontario and across North America now as well. Let's go back to the very beginning, okay? When you were, you were thinking about being a business owner, and then you actually took that step. Can you share with us kind of the origin story of Madison Taylor?
For sure. Yeah. So I guess like it goes pretty far back. I mean, when I was really young, I had a thing about organization and the way things looked and the way things worked. And I was very like, I want to say obsessive, but I really cared a lot about efficiencies and functionalities and visual like organization. And so as a young person, I was always focusing in on that. And right into high school, started doing co-ops with design, but also working a lot through the hospitality industry, which was another piece that I realized very quickly, like I loved experience. And I loved being able to provide people with great experience. And so, kind of going down these two paths, hospitality and design, and then getting into college doing designing hospitality environments, which was really neat. So starting to design, hotels, resorts, restaurants. But again, it wasn't just about like the product we were putting together. Like obviously we care a lot about the visual final product, but I really wanted to figure out how to like improve experience for people. And so I started working with some different companies, and everywhere I worked, it's not like I was unhappy or I didn't like, my job or the people that I was working with, but I was always struggling with like, such a better way to do this. And like, I have no control on making that happen. And so I guess I just did that for a few years and then realized like, I really want more control over what I'm doing, the experience that I'm providing, and not having someone kind of hold me back. So I quit my job.
Just probably scary at the time.
Yeah. And my husband was an entrepreneur, and he was like, yeah, it's fine, just like quit. And I'm like, I'm also someone who likes to have answers and like have my feet on the ground. So it was terrifying.
Yeah.
But then I quickly like jumped into a plan of like, okay, I'm going to take a business program. I understand the design side, but like, I really want to understand the business side. And
so you went to school, you took a program.
I went through like the government. So it was like a government like business program, kind of like a Grow Venture type thing.
Yeah.
Just to like help me frame that beginning step of like, what do you do? Like, do you just like make a business card and like start talking to people, or, so building out that business plan and like really making sure that I understood some of that, that piece. And then that's it. Rest is history. Like we basically, started at my dining room table, networking like a crazy person, and then just,
took action.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's such a great point. At the beginning, whenever you're thinking about getting into business, we forget now that we scale. What it was like at the beginning is you really don't know really anything about business. You want to start a business.
Yeah.
But like, what are the key ingredients to actually starting a business? And so that what you did was really smart. You actually got some education.
Yeah, for sure.
And you got some insight and to give you enough confidence to say, I'm going to start.
Right. Exactly.
And then you took that next step, which is where most people fail, is you actually jumped in and you took action.
Right. Yeah.
So take us through that beginning stage. So you said, okay, I'm in business now. You took action.
Yeah.
Take us through, like, how did you get those first, couple of clients?
Yeah.
And then where was it that you really started to take off, that you're like, okay, now I feel that I'm actually, running a viable business?
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess that beginning stage, like part of that business program was networking, which I like. I had experience talking to people because I worked in hospitality.
Right.
I served. I met a lot of different types of people. So I knew how to kind of like turn it on. But to be honest, I was like socially so uncomfortable and anxious. So it took a lot for me to kind of now take this like business that I had created as mine. And now I'm trying to tell people how great it's going to be. And like that was really nerve wracking because when you're selling food that's not connected to who you are,
Yeah.
you just sell the food, right? But when you're selling yourself, like it's a very vulnerable thing to be doing, right? Like you got to have that confidence to be like, yeah, this is amazing. You need to have it because of these reasons. It's like, that's overwhelming for me. So the beginning was hard because but when things get hard, you shove through them, right? So I just put myself into the most uncomfortable situations over and over again where I was in groups of people, talking in front of people, and really just like force myself into it. And then obviously the more you do it, the more you get comfortable doing it.
Yeah.
And I think people just could feel the passion and, what I was trying to do and were excited with me. And so we started getting clients. Like people were like, yeah, I love this. Like, come and meet me, or I have a friend. And so, starting really small, bathroom renos, kitchen renos, little living rooms with fireplaces. And, obviously you learn a lot of those first few projects. But really interestingly too, I guess like my experience pre-business was really helpful in that my first job, I got really thrown into the deep end. It was a single owner. He didn't have a team. He was doing full hotels, and he basically didn't even know what to do with an employee. Like, lovely guy, but he was like, I don't know, can you just figure it out?
Yeah.
I had to like, okay, I just came out of college. So it really forced me to like develop standards and do everything for him to try to get him organized. And then my next job was in commercial, so I was able to capture a whole lot of information there. So moving into that first project was really cool because it was sort of, it's already done it already. And I'd already been thrown to the deep end. So I was like, oh, let's just do it again. Wow. And, every project, learned and, we evolved and, kept going.
You gave a couple of really good points there. One is that when you started, you weren't comfortable, but you exposed yourself over and over and over. I can resonate with that because I'm more of a natural inward as well.
Totally.
And I only got good at really speaking with people because I spoke to thousands of people. I knocked on doors and cold called and way back in 2007, 2008, and that built the muscle.
Exactly.
But that grittiness that you were able to keep showing up was like a really powerful trait. And then drawing on your past experience with project management and then being able to take that in, I think that's another real valuable point when you're starting a business. If you can get into something that you have some skill sets that would give you an advantage over others in that was something that you had coming in.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people take their trade and go, I'm really good at this, I'm going to start my own business. And I think, like, as you know, you end up not doing that. Like you end up getting into it and then you slowly end up away from it because you've got all these other hats that you're wearing. Like I'm not just doing that design anymore. Now it's like team management, leadership, sales, like all these other things. So I think for people to have the ability to be open-minded with what that job might become, I think is like so key because it's like so many people I think get stuck in business because they're like, no, I'm the designer. I have to do all of these things. And then they don't let themselves step back at all. Yeah. And then you just simply can't do everything yourself. You have to figure out a way to like, provide or get people in to help you and be able to like let go a lot of some of those tasks too.
Yeah, that it's like there's a humility to this of and an openness and a curiosity. It's like, what does the business need for me? And then the humility to say, okay, you can do that role and I'll go do this role. And the business needs me now. But maybe take us through, okay, you're working on your own. Mm-hmm. You're starting to get some success. How on earth were you able to go from, you to having 35 team members, an 8-figure business? Like a new entrepreneur would be looking at you and like, how on earth did you do that? Okay, I get like starting the business on your own. Okay, that's one thing, but how are you able to do that to get up to 35 staff? And what were some of the main kind of key maybe moves that you did to be able to do that?
I think it's the ability to be able to put ego aside, and then also
Yep.
to be willing to take risk. And so, when you're by yourself and you're like, you know, slammed to each edge of, what you're capable of doing
Yeah.
on your own, it's like taking that risk and being like, oh gosh, I'm going to now bring on another salary and another person. But I started recognizing it was also about, there's things that I don't know that someone else might know better than me. Like, how do I find, like, hire your weaknesses, right?
Yeah.
Use your strengths and hire your weaknesses. So I was like, I'm really good at this. I need to bring someone else to do this. And I think it just kept going like that. It was like, we've been full and uncomfortable for X amount of time. It's time to now like add that extra person. And adding that extra person, as you know, is like, you're going to see that drop in your profits because you have to, add them, train them,
Yeah.
and then fill them back up. And then you start the cycle all over again, right? Like,
It's kind of like one step back to two steps forward.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so, my husband always said, like, take off the square wheels. Like, I think a lot of entrepreneurs get in that like square wheel syndrome where it's like, yeah, the car is moving forward, but you're like,
Yeah.
really like throw on the circle wheels here and let yourself roll because, if you can take that risk and push outside of the comfort zone, there's more opportunity. Like, there's a better chance that you're going to have more opportunity. Like, people who don't take risks, I mean, you're going to pretty much stay inside the box for a long time.
That's great. Hire for your weaknesses and hire people that you can continue to go faster.
Yeah.
And then focus on your strengths.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as you add people, it's like, it's nice because you can really just start fine tuning all those pieces. Like, obviously the first person that you add, there's still a lot to go, but then you add the next person and you can start fine tuning all those different, like, different divisions or different services or whatever it is that you're doing.
Madison, I would argue that you have one of the strongest brands in any sort of design, and your quality has been like incredible. So how on earth have you been able to, one of the things that you do really well is you stay on timelines. If you give a deadline, and it's so not like that out in the industry, it's like timeline and budget.
Right.
Okay. And the quality standard.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how do you think you're able to be so consistent with hitting your timelines, yet having such a high quality standard to be able to, service these, higher end homes?
Right. So I think, like, the beauty from coming from the commercial industry is that the commercial world is a lot more organized. So when you're building a restaurant or a hotel or an office building, the information that is required ahead of construction is so much more complex. So that when you tender it to a builder, they're quoting off of a set of really detailed drawings. And then when they're scheduling, they understand all aspects of that project. So I remember when we used to design restaurants, I mean, you don't have a client on site. Like, you design that package ahead of time, fully detailed, by numbers. Builder quotes it off that package, and then they execute, and you get to the finish line. And in that industry, it's like time is definitely money. Yeah. So when I started my company, I really quickly realized that in residential, I was like, what the heck? Like, people are doing nothing. Like, it's like the Wild West over here. Like, people are just like, hey, I have a basic permit drawing here, builder. What does it cost? And can you build it for me? And the builder goes like,
let me do
sure.
it. Let me do it first, and then I'll give you the number after.
Exactly. Yeah. Or here's a number, I think, because I don't have all the information. And then it's tricky because then like, clients are mad at the builder because the number's probably higher and it probably took longer.
Yeah.
But honestly, like, to their defense, like, they don't have the information. So how are they supposed to know what that costs, right? So we quickly realized, there's a lot of things in the industry that I think are really easy to fix. And I just think that people weren't really paying attention to how to fix them. You hear so many times, well, this is just how it works. It's like, but why? Like, it can work so much better. So, like, why aren't we doing it so much better? So we've implemented, like, our really, really detailed package. So really just taking that commercial away and applying it to our residential side so that, one, builder now has information that, is there so that they can quote accurately. They could build faster because the information's there. The client knows exactly what they're getting because we're designing and detailing everything pre-construction so that when it goes through, you're just following along. So it really, like, almost immediately took away like budget and timeline issues, because it's just really about having information ahead of time. And then quality, I mean, that's just taken a long time to like
Yeah.
not only develop like great building relationships with a lot of trades. Like obviously we worked through a lot, some not so great, some better, but at the end of the day, that client experience was so important for me that even if it wasn't great quality, we would have someone else coming in and fixing it. So there was like some learning, to that side. And obviously sometimes you just have to trust that people know, and sometimes they didn't. And, as long as you're there to support it and fix the problems, then people were generally pretty happy.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, surrounding yourself with the right team
Totally.
is really powerful.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's amazing how you're able to take the key learnings from, say, commercial and then apply it to residential and be fresh and new and have a competitive advantage,
Right.
have an edge out there.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's powerful.
Yeah.
So you're at 35 staff. How do you deal with day-to-day stress? Because, managing people is hard. You have such, you're dealing with multi-million-dollar clients, and they have high standards. And you and I both, we really like clients with high standards, like in both of our businesses. But how do you deal with stress on a day-to-day? How do you kind of cope with it and manage it so that you can keep on going and, wake up the next morning, give it, go at it again?
For sure. And then again, this took time to learn. Like in the beginning, you're like, I'm just going to work like every hour of every minute, and I'm going to respond to my emails at 2 a.m. and I'm going to do that. And I think, having kids in the midst of having my business, I think I hit a few points where I was like, this is not sustainable. Like I'm going to crash, or I'm going to like screw up here. So I really started to create that like life balance and just like essentially just like set boundaries with people. So it started with like our client base and my staff. Like we had hours of work. That was when I was available. So rarely would I respond nights and weekends. And people weren't upset about that because it was really just about setting expectations.
That's right.
It was just setting those expectations. This is how we work. And people just worked away that way. Like it was totally fine. But it was me recognizing that it was okay. Even if it wasn't fine to some people, it's still like just like setting and holding that boundary of like, if you want me to still be standing at the end of the day, like this is what I need. So that was a big part of it. And then also for my family, like my family is the number one thing for me. And I don't want 20 years to go by where I'm like, I don't even know what they were doing for those 20 years because I was too busy working. It's really important that, I love my work. I love my team. I love what I'm doing, but I also love my family. I want to make sure that they have equal amount from me and being able to lead and guide them. So boundary setting and really just like putting parameters on like work life. But I would say like fitness and music and things like that as well. Like if I wake up and I'm super, anxious or stressed about something, like naturally I'm like, I don't want to move. I don't want to get up. But I'm like, you get up, you go to the gym and you do something really hard. And so I find when I'm in those like hard periods, I find things that are harder to push myself in. So like I'll go downstairs and I'm like, I'm lifting the even heavier weight today because it's like this empowering thing where it's like you do have control, like you do have control and these things will work themselves out. And then obviously naturally you get your dopamine fix in the morning and it gives you that like, I'm strong, I'm powerful, and like I got this, It
minimizes the challenges you're going through.
Exactly.
That's so good.
Yeah.
I was at a mastermind one year and one of the top producers there shared some really great insight. She said, Mark, I always slot it off between 4 and 6 p.m. Every day. And I just booked my appointments around that. And that allowed me to go home. And what she found was it was like no problem because people were driving home during that period. So she either do it before or after.
Yeah.
And she said, I realized my business didn't change and it allowed me to be more focused because I would get my work done by 4 o'clock because I knew I had a cutoff.
Yeah.
And that key insight was something that I implemented early in my career.
Yeah.
And it was such a key thing to be able to sit down with the family for dinner. And then I knew I could go back out after.
Yeah. Exactly.
The other point you had said about working out and doing something hard. So one of the things that I've implemented is the cold plunge.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so this is something that, yes, when you're going through a challenging time,
Yeah.
it's like you're about to get in mentally. It's like if you can push yourself to do that, all of a sudden, that tough phone call you had to make
Yeah.
later in the day is not so hard anymore.
Right.
Because you've already done it.
Totally. It's like 100% a mindset thing. And I think I've really learned to just train your mindset. And I think at the end of the day too, having those tough conversations, we have tough conversations all the time. It's just part of business. It's you got to do it. But I think also if you know that you've genuinely done your best, it's just a conversation, and I didn't read the book Four Agreements, but I really like the Four Agreements. Are you taking things personally? Are you doing your best? Are you being impeccable with your word? And I always forget the lesson. Yeah, impeccable with your word. Always do your best. Don't make assumptions. Right? So it's if I'm in a situation and I'm getting a little bit uncomfortable and I'm like, what's happening? I'll go through that and I'm like, oh, I'm making assumptions. Okay, shut it down. And I'm like, oh, I'm not doing my best. I need to step up. Or, I'm saying something negative that I shouldn't be saying. So it's it's such a silly 4-sentence mantra, but I also find it so simple, but it's so true. Usually if you can check through those things,
It's powerful. That's really great insight. Another good book I found to be really helpful is Crucial Conversations. And it's this whole idea of building safety at the beginning of a conversation as well. But the Four Agreements, that's wonderful insight. And when you're going in, it's interesting when you're having these conversations, it's how can I grow and develop you as a person? If it's a team member, you need to have a tough conversation. This is about growing, developing you.
Really?
This is about me hitting you on the head over
Right.
with a hammer sort of approach.
exactly.
But then, there's tough customer conversations sometimes you need to have, or maybe it's a trade you got to have a conversation with, and
Exactly.
it's a real thing as a business. These tough conversations. It's something that when you start as an entrepreneur, you don't realize how many of them you're going to need to have.
Totally.
But the more you do,
Yeah.
it becomes easier and easier.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I find too, again, in these tough conversations, it's remaining respectful, kind, and professional. Those, again, my top rules. The moment you start to put personal feelings or anything else around it, it's just, be professional, be kind, firm but fair, right? So I find with my team, it's sometimes if you have to have a difficult conversation, it's really ensuring them that it's about their growth. If I don't give you this feedback, you're not growing. And I always say when you're uncomfortable, you're growing. And my whole team knows that. I'm it's uncomfortable right now, but we're all learning something and it's going to feel a lot better next time, because you're going to have this experience and you're going to have this conversation going, right. I went through this.
You're such a great leader. One of the reason I say that right now, I know you are, but how you said it's going to be better next time.
Yeah.
It's that's something that a really great leader does is they're able to set a really strong vision for the future, and the future is going to be better than today.
Right.
And team members, they need to know that, right? They need to know that, where we're going is we're going to a better place together.
Right.
Because nobody else is talking like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's really powerful example you just gave that I just want to underline to show that you are a good leader.
Oh.
So the other thing is the conversations is one thing, and then you have decisions.
Right.
We make thousands of decisions on regular basis. There's just so many of them. Mm-hmm. Now the quality of the business really will come down to the decisions we make. Are there any filters or decision-making kind of process you have to make quality decisions on a day-to-day basis in your business?
Yeah. I think gathering information is number one. Do I have all the information around this topic for me to feel confident enough to make a decision?
Right.
So, have I talked to all the different parties? Have I done whatever research or whatever background so that I can go, okay, now I have all the information. It's big picture, right? If someone says to you, hey, this happened, but you don't really know why, and then you react to that, it's you might not, you might be reacting completely wrong. By the time you gather all the information and you really see that big picture, it allows you to kind of assess it as a whole and then make decision. I do find like being decisive too is really important. I think a lot of people get stuck in that, like, I don't know. And I would pride myself on someone who, when I have the information, I'm like, that's
So
and I recognize sometimes there might be consequences, and I try to think about those ahead of time, knowing that, like, okay, if I make this decision, these are the things that could potentially happen, but this is what I can do if that happens, or it could go this way. Right. So really thinking about, all the information up front that I have that I could predict, and then try to predict a little bit about what that could result in, as the next step, and just be really comfortable with it and just go, this might be good, this might be bad, but I'm willing to accept whatever responsibility, happens.
Yeah, it's like that. You have that owner hat on, and that's one of the things that I'll try to pass on. We have our real estate sales team, and then we have the real estate investment firm, and so we have these core values that we teach to them, and say they're actually up on the wall behind on the brokerage side. So we have love, on fire, excellence, growth, innovation, and wow. And then we have on the firm side, real estate investment firm, we have genuine love of people, making wise choices, first-class service, operational excellence, and speed of execution. And so one of the things is we teach all of the team members these values, and we say, whenever you've got to make a decision, filter them through these core values. And then what you had said was really smart, was to factor in, is this something that you can stand behind, or, put your owner hat on? Is this something that you can be accountable for?
Totally.
And then make a decision.
Exactly.
And so these are really powerful to be able to, yes, what you gave was excellent on a day-to-day. And then, teaching it down, that's one of the things that we've been able to implement with our team so that they can make quality decisions as well.
Totally. And I think, like, I often talk about, what's important for us as a team with our team.
Yeah.
And, again, like, the biggest thing is like client experience. Like, that is where like the buck stops. So it's like, the money is important. Obviously, we have to make money to keep lights on and to be able to pay everybody. But I always try to make a decision around how it's impacting that client experience. Before how much is it costing us, or, how much more time is it going to take, or everything. It's like, how's that impacting our client experience? And it's nice because our team really started, like, they really think the same way as you do. If you're talking to them enough and you're sharing these things, it's like they start to live and breathe it, right? And even the way we market ourselves, like, we have a new video we're putting out on our social media, I think in the next couple of coming weeks. And I think I'm hearing our industry all the time. And honestly, it's unfortunate, but the common words I hear are ego.
Yeah.
It is what it is. That's how they work.
Right.
It was a terrible experience, but I love the whatever, and it's just like, it's so disappointing to me to hear that people are just okay with that. It's like, gosh, like, higher your expectations, right? So we're doing a video where I wanted our team to, be standing at the dark backdrop, simple hair, simple makeup, simple clothes, so that it's not distracted. Nothing's distracting. And it's really talking about the words that are meaningful to our team. So it was like kindness, transparency, passion, and collaboration. And we talk about all these things, and it's really to connect to our clients that, like, we do care. Like, we care about all these things. It's not just like, look at us in our portfolio. It's like, how can we be great for you? Like, what can we do for you? And so it's really neat when you start pushing that kind of stuff out there, because I would say the team that we have now, we've kind of like curated through our social media because they want to be part of something like this. So it's really neat. Like, when people join our team, they're like, I love how you guys are client driven. I love how you're, this and that. So I think in general, like, people crave that. Like, they want people and good experience. And so, I think having our team, come to us for those reasons makes it much easier for our leaders to lead a team who are already getting it. Like, they already get it.
Well, but that you're talking about it as the leader, and so they're starting to say it because they're hearing it from you.
Totally.
And the thing that's so powerful, it's like, these aren't just words that you have, like, you really believe it.
Totally.
And it's like in your DNA. And so when you're speaking, it's like, oh, that's how we talk here.
Right. Yeah.
And then so it's a really proud thing as a leader.
Yeah.
You probably, you mentioned it, when you see them speaking like that, it makes you happy.
Totally.
And
your kids.
Yeah.
It's like your kids do that.
Yeah.
It's like, they're hearing us.
Like, you're getting it. Good job. It's like, this is how we act here.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
And then
Yeah.
And the cool thing is then you don't need to micromanage them when they're speaking with clients, right?
Yeah.
You know they're going to be treating them well
Totally.
and in alignment with the same way that you would. But it's like I found that team members, they mirror the leader.
For sure. And actually what's interesting is like we've had a couple people that obviously have come from different places.
Right.
Most people have come from different places.
Yeah.
And it's such an interesting transition sometimes because, you know, here's an example. We had a lovely girl we hired who had come from a bit more of a toxic environment. And I overheard her on a conversation with a supplier in the early days being quite rude, like aggressive, like you have to do this or I'm going to yell at you or what, you know, like really, really intense. And she got off the phone and I just about died. And I was obviously very careful with how I spoke with her about it. But I said, listen, like, that's not who we are here. Like, I appreciate that you're trying to get something done. And, you know, maybe that's an experience that you brought with you from your previous place. But like professionalism, kindness, like there's always a way to work with people. And I think like at first they were like, oh, I did something wrong. But then I think like the sense of relief is like, oh, I don't have to be an asshole. You know, like I don't have to be rude to you know, get what I need done. Like it's like, you know, you get more bees with honey. Like, and so I think people get really comfortable working here because it's safe. It's like, it's kind and they don't have that pressure to, you know, be mean.
Well, I can tell from personal experience, we've used your services now multiple times, and what you're saying is true. Like you actually live that out and you're able to service clients and deliver. And that's the big part of your brand. So I can speak from personal experience on that. Are there any misconceptions that when people see your industry, the design industry, like, I guess you had shared one about like, you know, people not being treated well, right? Or they go to the designer and it's like, this is the way. Are there any other kind of misconceptions that, you know, when people are looking in that maybe aren't the way that they seem?
For sure. Yeah. So another big thing that I saw shifting into the industry when I started my company was the relationship between builders and designers. That was a tricky one because a lot of designers, it's not to offend any of them, don't have a ton of construction experience.
Right.
So often they would put together a really cool concept and design, and then the builder would, you know, roll their eyes, be frustrated because it was like, you can't build that, or it's not feasible, or, you know, whatever about it wasn't right.
It's not cost effective.
Right. Yeah. And then rather than collaborating and working together, it was just like a headbutting. Like it was terrible. So we've really focused our team on building that construction experience and finding ways to support the builder. And so we again, we're the design team that's like, how can we make this great? And how can we help the builder? And how can we help the client? How can we help the trade? Because at the end of the day, the client experience for all, you know, for it to be, you know, for it to go really well, all those things have to work really well. It's not just about getting a design out the door that looks amazing. It's like, now we have to execute it. Now we have to build those relationships with the builder and the trades to make sure you actually get to the finish line with that design. So yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people think that, well, more from the builder side, like builders, it took a long time to build our reputation with builders to prove to them that we were capable and that we do support the program very much. So that was really big. And then, you know, again, back to that designing, that ego design, it's like, we don't want people to come to us and go, well, you're just going to tell us what you want because it's, you know, we're driving our portfolio. We really focus on like, what do you want? Like what represents you? What represents, you know, what you want to feel at the end of the day in your home, the functionality of it, the aesthetic of it. And then if we're good designers, we should be able to facilitate that style and that functionality versus saying, hey, you're coming to us and this is what you get.
Right.
What we do.
Yeah. No, it's powerful. And so there was a couple of things that I heard that I really want to underline. One is like being an expert at what you do and being respected from these builders, right? That was something that you had to earn their respect. So you had to be a master of what you do and to understand the whole process from start to finish.
Sure. Yeah.
That was really powerful on that side of it. And so, okay, now the challenge that you've had maybe in the past that maybe you want to share, or some would call it a failure, we'd probably call it an opportunity.
Yeah.
But maybe can you share maybe an example of one that you've been through in the past and like how you were able to overcome it? Because we go through a lot of failures and challenges.
Totally. And I've always tried to be honestly very transparent with people about when I'm feeling the challenge or when I'm going through something, because I think not enough people talk about it. And so you kind of have this illusion that everyone's doing really, really well, and it makes you feel even worse about maybe what you're going through.
Right.
Where when I started talking to people about like, hey, this is really hard and this is a challenge I'm having, they're like, oh my God, me too. Like,
Right.
and then you get to this like point where then people can start talking about it, where when you put this front on that like, yeah, we're so successful, everything's amazing, but like at home you're like, like help, wait, like, so I think like I love talking about it. I think it's real life stuff and most people are going through it. COVID I think is like obviously one of the biggest one for most people.
Yeah.
So what happened is like we were growing pre-COVID. I think we were 15 to 18 people, let's say.
Okay.
And when COVID first hit, I mean, the whole world shut down to include us, everyone just halted. And I saw that initial dive where like, I was like, oh my gosh, like we have 18 people. What are we going to do?
Right.
My husband's business took the same dive at the same time. So the two of us at home were like, what? Yeah. What do we do? Like, this is crazy. Like, are we going to lose everything? Are we going to have to sell our home? And, luckily, so I said, okay, this is risk, but if we're going down and we have time right now, which we never have because they're always busy and doing stuff, I said, let's take the opportunity to like flip the business on its head. I was like, let's redo websites. Let's hire consultants to go over all of our financials. Let's hire someone to do workflow and SOP management. Let's do communication training. Like I was like literally throwing every consultant at our business that we could, spending money that I was terrified that we even had.
Yeah.
But I thought, you know what? We're growing already. And if we continue to grow at the way that we're growing, it's like not a sustainable company. It was so inefficient. It was square reels, like left, right, and center. So I was like, okay, maybe this is that opportunity to make that shift, make that change, put the foundation under the business that it needed,
Right.
in hopes that when we got through it, which we did, we would now be able to kind of scale and grow. Yeah. And so it was terrifying. I like many sleepless nights, Rob and I just like not knowing what to do with ourselves, but pushing through it.
Yeah.
Really difficult, still, balancing kids and family. And yeah, we did all of those things. And it was like disruptive innovation, right? Like half our team left because they were like, this is not, we're out of here. Like
you guys are like, this is becoming special forces and I'm just regular army. I don't want this anymore.
Exactly. They're like, I just want to show up and do my job and leave. And like, there's way too many change. This is too much. And like, I recognize it was uncomfortable for people. Yeah. Because like, you just, again, change is tough. So that was hard. We had some people leave because they were just like, this is too much for me. And then, then we started to see the busyness happen again. And within like 6 months, all of that like hard work. So it was like 6 to 8 months of work. But then 6 months after, we got really busy, like really busy. Like I think a lot of construction industry did. And I was like, this is so easy. Like everything is just working. Like it just like all of a sudden the wheels started turning and like everything just seemed so much smoother. And so it was like, my God, because obviously it was a huge risk, putting that time and effort into it. But we instantly saw the benefit. And then scaling after that, like we went from 18 to, we were up to 40. We did have a little bit of a shift this year, but it was like, well, just add people. We had a system, we had a foundation, we had a core, and everything just kind of added. And so it was very exciting to see that, like, again, really hard time, hardest time probably in my life. But it worked, and again, making the decision, taking the risk, and just having faith that, things would work out.
So good. Yeah. And so you invested in the business at the scariest time.
And even personally, it was the scariest time. Like both businesses, we were both like, well, we're in for the ride here. So that was good. And we did a communication training too during that time, which was like another kind of piece that we added to our team. I recognized during that time and in the growth, when you're adding people, and people come with personalities and different communication styles. And I saw the issues with that too. It's like, I would write an email to somebody saying, hey, can you send me this? I'm not mad. I just need you to send me that. And they would be like,
Yeah.
be in a,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And so we did this communication training and understood now who everyone was kind of as a letter. We did get the DISC assessment. And it was so fascinating how much that changed our business because people started to understand where things were coming from.
Yeah.
And we're able to kind of like define, oh, they're not mad at me. That's just the personality. Like they just need information quick and they want the bottom line. And so bringing that into the team, it just like removed any kind of, misunderstanding, I guess, and then allowed us to even apply it to our clients and our trades and everyone else. Because like when we meet people now, you can kind of quickly like analyze who they might be as a DISC assessment profile.
Yeah.
And go, hey, that person wrote me a really long inquiry email, like bullet point form. They're probably a C. Let's give them a lot of information back. Where if someone inquires and says like, we're really excited, we want to do our house, please call me. Maybe they're an I, so call them. Don't write them a long email with all this information because they might not even want to read it, or a D personality emails. And so please send me all your info. Just give them a price list or like get to the bottom line, right? So it was something and during that time that we implemented it as well. And that's been, a huge tool that we've used internally, but also like externally as well.
Communication is such a powerful thing and an important thing in the business. So like, putting yourself in the other person's shoes when you're communicating is important. So that's where the personality profiles and understanding that it sounded like that was a really good,
it was awesome
game changer for your business.
for sure.
It's interesting. As we started scaling up with communication, we realized that we were getting to the point, same with us, where we were growing inefficiently. And then I started digging in, like, what are the barriers to growth?
Yeah.
And one of them, so there's accountability and then communication is one of the big ones. And it's interesting when you have two people that are working together, you have two-way communication. Then you hire one more, so there's three. Yeah. There's 6 ways communication, right? So we're speaking, I'm speaking to, Sally over there, Sally's speaking to me, Sally's speaking to you, speaking. Yeah. So it increases the percentages on a multiple on the complexity of the communication. And so the point there is, as we started scaling it into getting 4, 5, 6, 7 team members, all of a sudden we found that communication was not being effective.
Totally.
And so to add to what you're saying about, how you communicate and understanding the other person, what we did was we actually implemented daily huddles and then meeting cadence, so weekly meetings in everyone, so that it's like we had frontline we had manager daily huddles, and then we had frontline department huddles. So every department had their own daily huddle, and then the managers, so that information could flow from the front lines all the way up to the management level with 2 meetings, and right from kind of the horse's mouth, so to speak.
Yeah.
So it's like how you communicate is valuable.
Yeah.
But then, and understanding the other person, how they communicate, which is powerful. And then also adding in the right rhythms.
Totally.
So that you're hearing it from the person instead of through the grapevine.
Exactly. And so the same thing. So during that time when we flipped the company on its head, we implemented the exact same thing. So we had our management meetings and then we had our department meetings.
Yeah.
Like, so each week we would get updated on, all the architectural, all the interior, all the landscape. And then do our monthly team. But then we also started doing like the one-on-one check-in. So we had our review, quarterly or whatever with the person, so we could share what we needed to share. But we added the one-on-ones monthly so that they could share their challenges, like workload, struggling with, whatever, so that it was kind of their opportunity to talk and share what they need too. So that we're aware of, I want longevity in people. Like, we want to make sure you're happy, you're comfortable. If something needs to ship, we don't want to wait a year for you to have your review, like tell us if something's not working, kind of as we go along.
That's powerful. Yeah. We call them same pages, like that check-in.
Yeah.
And we found like the number one reason why people would leave a company is because they didn't have a relationship with the manager. Mm-hmm. It's like most people leave companies because they don't like who they're working for and that direct manager, right? So we found those check-ins that you're saying, we call them same pages.
Yeah.
that was like a critical thing to, help build that culture stronger.
Totally.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times you just don't know, right?
Yeah.
Like everyone's busy, you're working,
Yeah, for
you're
sure.
in your own silo and you've got your own priorities. And it's like, Joe sitting in the corner could be like, I hate my job.
Yeah.
You don't even have a clue, right? And without that conversation, it's like really tricky, but but you have to prioritize it because time just goes by.
Yeah.
And if we don't have that like structured element to it,
Right.
then it becomes awkward to bring it up or, oh, when's the right time? So it's like, we just make it happen. And then some of our staff are like, I have nothing to say. This is great. And they don't even have one. And then some are like, hey, I'd love to grow, or I'd love to expand more here. And just gives us like targets so that we're aware, at least of people are feeling,
Yeah.
I always say like, you can't be mad or upset about someone unless you've talked about it. Because then most people don't understand that they're doing anything wrong, right? And so it's like, if you can share your feelings with someone still doesn't change anything, be mad all you want.
Yes, that's right.
But if you haven't, like so many people get frustrated and upset, and it's like, have you talked to them yet?
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah, well, you've got to like clear that air first.
Right.
They might be like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And then, you see the shift almost immediately.
Well, and now in both of our businesses, we've provided that platform for all of our staff to be able to have those, so they have that cadence. Is like, you have that opportunity. Why didn't you share? And that's the same thing. Well, we'll have that conversation like this. They just didn't share it in the same. It's like, well, why didn't you share it? It's like, you had all those opportunities. Like, well, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So no, that's really powerful. So understanding, communicating, and really get an understanding of what is the personality of who you're speaking with, and speak at their level.
Right. And just providing that opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah. That's a genuine love of people right there.
Totally.
And it's like, if you look after your team members, they're going to look after the clients.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Power.
And they're going to enjoy coming to work. Like, I want people to like love coming to work, because you just you get better product out of everything.
Yeah. No, that's that. And it's a really great investment, and it's great for profitability overall, because happier team members, they work harder, and
efficiencies,
happier clients, more referrals. And it seems so simple.
I know, right?
But yeah,
totally.
What do you think makes a great leader? Like, what maybe some quality traits are some of the things that you're like, okay, if somebody has, these things that, these are good quality traits of a really strong leader?
I think like a humbleness is important. Like, I think people who are willing to admit their faults and like be open and kind of exposing of themselves, I think is important, because it just makes other people feel that they can be that way too. And then it just clears that air, and I think you need to be able to, as a leader, do everything that your team is doing. So like, I am happy to jump in and move things, like move the office and get dirty, and like, I don't hold myself above my team. And it's funny. I have so many conversations with people, and I always say we, and I don't know, I've just like done that since even we had 2 people. I said we, and they're like, who's we? I'm like, I don't know, the team.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just like really acknowledging that like, I'm not above anybody, and I was actually out the other night with a group of girls, and she came up to me and she's like, I have to tell you a funny story. She said, when I first met you, you said, hi, my name is Madison. I work with Kim. She's like, I didn't find out for like a month that you were Madison Taylor. She's like, why wouldn't you just say it? I was like, I don't know. I don't need people to know that I'm like this person.
Like the boss. Like,
I work with Kim, who I do. And Kim. So I thought, oh, that's a great connection. And so, I think it's just like, that's cool. Never putting myself above my team. Yeah. I don't believe that I am. I think that we're all equal. I think that, and I say to our team, like, we treat people with kindness, whether it's the person coming in to help sweep the floors in our house, or whether it's our wealthiest client. Like, we provide the same treatment to everybody in the middle. And I think, again, as long, like, you have to walk the walk. You know what I mean? Like, people need to see from me that I'm willing to make mistakes, admit my mistakes, treat people well. Like, you have to be a mirror of what you want to see and be willing to like stand behind it.
The humility side is something that Jim Collins talks about in his book, Good to Great. And he talks about the humility is what a level 5 leader has. It's like a level 4 leader is somebody that it's all about them. And a level 5 leader, it's not about me as the CEO. It's about the mission that we're on, and the mission is above everyone.
Exactly.
So he's like,
We're just a part of.
that's right.
Like we're just a part of that team. We're another key player that is getting that
Yeah.
accomplishment, right?
Exactly. And even to take it a step further, it's like instead of being on the top of an org chart, it's like as a CEO, it's almost like you're the ultimate servant, right? You're at the bottom, and then you have your key generals, just above you, and then you have their frontline staff, right?
Yeah.
And the humility side of it is something that is really, we need to constantly keep that in check, right? Because it's just always below the surface.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes you just gotta that's why Joanna for me sometimes she's like, you said that you're speaking with that, receptionist of this business. Like it kind of came across this way. I'm like,
yeah.
oh man. I'm like, no, I know what I gotta do now. Then I'm going back and I'll actually own that and I'll say, when I said this, like I know it could have come across this way, and
right.
And it's like I'll like apologize for that and take ownership for that.
I totally know what you're saying. And like I think like I've just been that way for so long, because it's like I never wanted to be in front. And it's like when people told me I started having to do filming and video, I was like, can someone else do it? Like, can someone else go here? Because it's like, again, like I like to be kind of in behind the scenes, like, orchestrating the show, but really it's like about, the team and everybody else. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, you're a great face and a great representation of your company. So I'm glad that you're taking a step forward and growing there.
Yeah.
What investing advice would you give to entrepreneurs? So they're starting to make income and, they want to continue to grow their wealth. What kind of any sort of investing advice would you give?
For sure. I mean, I've always been someone that is always like putting into my business, because I think it like for it to grow and for you to be able to optimize, like you have to keep investing money. And so I've never paid myself too much. I've always been very careful with what should that salary be, and not making a little bit of money and then blowing it. Recognizing that there's ebbs and I've learned over the last 15 years, like ebbs and flows are a real thing. It's like you can go up, but you can just as fast go back down again. And so I think it's really important to understand that having enough money in the bank to support, whatever that cycle that makes sense for your company is like so critical. Because if you don't, and you hit that, our economy is like crazy. It's so unpredictable. You've got COVID, then you've got the ripple effect of COVID. Now you've got the economy, and there's, presidential elections coming up and all kinds of things that we don't know. I mean, any industry could drop.
That's right.
Very, very quickly. So I always sort of, I didn't always think that way, but I learned, and
go through a cycle, you learn
you're like, okay, I need to have some reserves here. And so, having your reserves. And, it's interesting. Someone said something to me one time about, the high and low of ebb and flow of business. And it's like when really good things happen, I would go way up with it. Like, oh my God, like we did this, or like, and the emotion would just go through the roof. But then when that really bad thing happened, it was hard. Like it was like such a deep dive. And she said, this is just life and business. Like it's going to go up and down. So I started learning that like when really great things happen, get excited, celebrate it, and then move on, so that you're not experiencing such a high low. And I think financially, it's the same thing. When things are really good, don't just start spending and going crazy because you're in this high, because that low will feel 10 times lower. And then how do you get back out of that low? So really just finding this nice little balance in the middle where, again, you go up with the highs, you celebrate, you save your money. The low doesn't seem so low. You're like, sucks, but whatever, we're prepared for this. There's going to be a high again, and you just sort of like, find that middle line.
Yeah, I think that's really great advice. And knowing that, there are challenging times around the corner. And when they do come, it's just like, oh, that is part of the regular cycle.
Totally.
And the sun is going to be coming up tomorrow.
Right.
And it is going to get better. Totally. So just keep on moving.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's great.
And I also learned too that when things got really good earlier on, I let myself kind of coast. I was like, this is great. We're just like cruising, we're busy. And then it was like, oh God, I still have to sell it. Like, oh my gosh, I need to do this thing because it will stop with it, right? So yeah, just learning that, again, give yourself a break, take those times to like celebrate, but like also just keep your eye on the prize, like keep moving, keep
Yeah.
working hard, take the opportunity when things are really easy to like find something interesting and like,
Yeah.
shift things a little bit or find the opportunities in those times so that it's not stressful. You just, constantly changing, shifting, learning. Yeah.
Great,
Mhm.
great advice. And the complacency side of it here is so true. You constantly need to be checking that. It's like to me, I've seen in business that it's really the kryptonite of entrepreneurs
Totally.
is complacency, right? So staying sharp
Yeah.
when you're at the top of the game
Totally.
and really, continuing to have that rookie
Yeah.
kind of mindset, that learner's mindset,
For
right?
sure.
And constant growth and, how can you level up to the next level?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I was having a conversation with my oldest son, who's 12,
Yeah.
and he's a runner, and he wins every year in his cross country.
Yeah.
He comes first place. And then he gets nervous. He gets so nervous every time he goes into a race. Like every time he's like, well, what if I don't win? And I was like, well, and I said, it's really hard to be number one. I said, because number two has you to follow and they know how to get in front of you. But
Yeah.
number one, again, you get complacent. Like
Yeah.
you're like, oh, I win every year. And next thing you know, that kid who's been watching you finds a way to get past you. 'Cause
Right.
so I was like, you have to create your own rabbit. Like
Yeah.
your race is with yourself. So if you did that in 3.5 minutes this year, try to shave 10 seconds out next year. And I said, and then if he does beat you, that's okay.
Right.
Like it's always moving your own finish line, because otherwise what do? You just get complacent. And then all of a sudden everyone starts plowing past you as a business, especially like you're not making technological changes. You're not thinking about, how to grow team, and you just sort of go, well, we're making money. This is great. Well, as you see in business, you just get plowed over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Break past it.
that's really good insight there. And you got a really competitive son. I wonder where he got that from.
Right.
Yeah.
Two parents.
All right. What are you excited about, Madison, moving forward?
I think that my head's been a little bit in the sand and that we've been building our own headquarters.
Yeah.
It's been very brain occupying, like, taking on a project like that, about 12,000 square feet. But it's done, we finished our building. It's, we've got a lot of phases and layers that we still need to do, but I think like accomplishing something like that was so occupying. It's like being able to just like open up my eyes again and see like, okay, now what's next? Like what is that next goal? Because this was kind of a big one. And it's like, now I can start really looking at, what is that next cycle that we want to do? And yeah, I love growing our team. And I love that we're kind of in this like phase now where we have such a strong core and we have such a strong like business and model that now it's all about like that fine tuning and like now, really going after perfect. And we're excited for, we've been pushing down a little bit into Florida. We've been pushing out west. So we've been pushing out east as well. So looking at that new kind of expansion plan of getting in more into the US and
very cool.
Yeah.
Well, once you really nailed down that future kind of vision or that next thing, I know you got your building done. We'll have to have you come back here and you can share that.
For sure.
You ready for the rapid fire part of the
Oh gosh, here we go.
of the show? Very cool. Okay, so what book was the biggest impact in your business that you've read?
So I'm gonna admit something. I'm not a reader,
Yeah, okay.
but I love conversation and I know a lot of readers. So I try to
Maybe there's a mentor or role model maybe that you maybe listened to or that you'd aspire to.
So you know what? Like my clients have been one of the biggest, like I really connect with a lot of my client base and a lot of them are entrepreneur and we have like such great conversation.
Okay, that's cool.
So to me, I do really pull from, finding mentorship in a lot of different people. I actually started reading the book about the Patagonia owner, but like, I don't know, my brain it starts to fire and then I'll read half a book and be like, oh God, what did I just read? I didn't read it. And then in the car, I end up on the phone literally nonstop. So I have the intention of listening to podcasts and then that also goes out the window. So
There's funny.
terrible answer, but
No, that's a real one. And the reality is that whether it's book or a a role model or a mentor, or in your case, you're getting it from your clients. I mean, you're working with super successful entrepreneurs on a day-to-day basis, right? And so you have the curiosity mindset and you're learning from them.
For sure.
But you're learning still. And that's like an underlying theme that I see with successful people, which is really powerful. For me, when I was reading books, just reading it, I'd have that same challenge where I'd read something and then sometimes it'd be like, what did I just read? And so what I did was I started buying the Audible book, and I have the physical book, and I have a pen. And then I could actually speed up the Audible to like 1.5, 1.7, and it would actually pull me through the book. And then I'd underline the key in the kind of ideas that really spoke to me. And then I would go back at the end of the book and take those key highlights and then kind of summarize it. And I found when I did that, my retention level went up. And it would pull me through the book, right? And so that was just something that I implemented to really help with that. But I mean, that was just for me. So 3 words, if your team or clients were to define you in 3 words, what would those 3 words be?
So we actually did a marketing exercise where we had our marketing team interview a lot of our clients.
Okay.
And leadership was one of the biggest ones that came back. Like they evidently saw that leadership and then how it kind of blended in to the team. Passion.
Okay.
I mean, I feel like passion is like my biggest thing. Like if I'm into something, like you can't stop me. Like I am like, get out of my way. You know, I'm into this. And I guess the other one would probably be, I think, communication. Like I really pride myself on communication and, you know, understanding people, understanding how to talk to people, listen to people. Like I love, you know, I love understanding people.
Great communicator. Yeah, and I totally agree with all 3 of those. And then what advice would you give your younger self? And it doesn't need to be about business. It could be about anything.
Yeah. You know, I think it took me a really, really long time to build confidence.
Okay.
I think like now it's something that I have because it's like if I believe strongly in something, like I am confident in it. But I think it took me a really long time to have that confidence in groups of people. I would always kind of shy out. I would always kind of, and it's like it didn't really stop me from doing things, but it made it, I think, even more uncomfortable than it could have been.
Okay.
And it might have shifted, you know, the way I did things, you know, kind of growing through. But yeah, I would say like, stop worrying about what other people think. Stop worrying about what other people think. This is your journey at the end of the day. You know, and sometimes when I go to really, really big cities, it's a great way to check myself because you'll be walking around, let's say New York or something. There's people literally everywhere. And you may be worried about what you wore that day because you care. And it's like, no one knows or cares. No one notices or cares at all. So it's like, if you feel great in what you're wearing and what you're doing, nothing else matters. And so it's like, just turn up the noise and stop worrying about what other people think.
A wise man once told me that when you're 20, you care about what people think. When you're 40, you stop caring what people think. And then when you're 60, you realize that people weren't thinking about you at all.
I love that. I totally think that one.
It's
so true.
No, and that's good. And that's actually there was a book, I forget the name of it, but they interviewed people that were on their deathbed. And one of the key things that people regret is not taking action and doing the things that they wanted to do because they're worried about what people would say about it.
Totally.
And so I think your piece of advice is really good. Stop worrying about them. Do your
thing. And sometimes it creeps in and then I'm like, who cares? So, you know, and then, you know, I'm really able to just like recognize when it's happening and just pushing past it.
Yeah.
Because like, and then you care of people, you sort of like naturally go that direction, you know, but it's your life.
Yeah, no, and you're doing a phenomenal job as a mom, as a wife there, and then as an entrepreneur, you're managing all of it extremely well. So a shining light for all the entrepreneurs that are watching this out there. So I want to thank you for today. This is wonderful.
Awesome.
The listeners out there, if they want to get a hold of you, if they're like, I want to design this. This is more of an upper end. They want to redo, say, you know, an upper end kitchen they want to build a multi-million-dollar
Yeah.
property and they want it managed meticulous. They don't want any sort of headaches. They want you hit your budget, hit your timelines, and to be designed, one of the best that is out there. How can they get a hold of you?
So I'd say the best way is, I guess, whatever works for you. Like we have our office phone number. We also have our email, and Becky, our concierge, is amazing. So she takes all those initial calls and, gathers information about the project and then usually sets it up with myself to have a much deeper conversation, whether it's on the phone, in person, virtual. Again, we really try to gear it towards what our clients are looking for and what they have the time for too.
Okay. And what's your website?
So it's MadisonTaylorDesign.com.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Very straightforward. Thank you so much, Madison. It's a pleasure.
I appreciate it. Yeah, it's awesome.
Thank you guys for tuning in, and looking forward to seeing you guys back on our next episode. We'll talk to you soon.